Hey there, everybody. Pete Pardo here from the Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of our Top 10 Song Show. Today we are going to tackle the legendary Jethro Tull, one of those really unique bands that over the course of their history kind of blended blues and folk and jazz and classical and hard rock and progressive rock into this really eclectic, like I said, unique sound that's so unlike any other band in the history of the rock genre. Heavy guitars, acoustic guitars, flutes, keyboards, you name it, they used it. Just an incredible band, led, of course, by Ian Anderson. Throughout the years, the history of the band, many different lineup changes, of course, and a lot of great albums and great songs. I will have to say, out of the few top 10 shows that I've done so far, this has been the hardest one. Probably because Tull has such a lengthy and historic career with so many great albums, with so many great songs. As I started to kind of put my list together, the list was rather enormous. And then I'm like, man, how am I going to whittle this down to just 10 songs? I did it. And I feel fairly comfortable with my top 10. But man, there's so many great ones that got left out. And some of you are going to be saying, why don't you just do a top 25? Even that would have been a challenge. So I figured rather than just keep going and going and going, I really want to stick to a top 10 on these shows. So I spent a few hours with this last night, and I think I have a pretty good list. I struggled with a couple, and I'll tell you when I get to them, I'll explain why. But I think it's a good list. Classic Tull. I think the most recent tune on here, these are, I believe, are all 70s. Yeah, they're all songs from the 70s. But I had a bunch from the 80s and early 90s that made my larger list. Not a ton, but a few. But let's just kickstart this, okay? So coming in at number 10, a song that I think most of us have probably heard more times than we can even count, and a song that I thought about not including in this top 10 list, but it is such a great song. It is a powerful song, and I actually went and listened to this song and this album yesterday, and I was like, yeah, I got included on here somewhere. So coming in at number 10 is Aqualung, a heavy rock classic with one of the most amazing guitar solos ever by Martin Barre. It's got to be on this list, right? So I'm going to put it at number 10 for me. Number 9 from the Stand Up album, a really, really fantastic kind of hard rock piece, Nothing Is Easy. Got to have that song on here. There are a couple songs from that album that warrant being in a best of list, but for me, that's my favorite track on the Stand Up album. I really love it a lot. Next up, the majestic Heavy Horses, coming in at number 8. I just really dig Heavy Horses a lot. In fact, I love that album a lot. The songs from the Wood album and the Heavy Horses album, I think, are two really unsung gems in Jethro Tull's discography, and I love the title track to both. As a matter of fact, coming in at number 7 is Songs from the Wood, a very upbeat kind of proggy, folky, hard rock masterpiece that's got some of the most complex arrangements of any Jethro Tull song. Love Songs from the Wood. Number 7. Coming in at number 6, I will come right out and say I tend to prefer Tull's heavier tunes, always have, although I love a lot of their more folky and proggy stuff, don't get me wrong. But I think some of their heavy rockers really resonate with me because I'm a hard rock and metal guy. So coming in at number 6 is Locomotive Breath. It's just such a bludgeoning, simple barn burner of a hard rock tune. I just always really dug it. It's got a great flute solo in it, great riffs. I've always had a soft spot for Locomotive Breath. So that's in number 6. Number 5, of course, that's from the Aqualung album. Coming in at number 5 is a tune that actually was released as a single that they later dumped onto the CD releases here in the U.S. of the Benefit album, which is an album I absolutely adore. And the song is Teacher. Ironically, a song that Ian Anderson has always hated, but I've always really liked Teacher a lot. I love the guitar licks in that song. Love the vocals and the lyrics. It's just a very, very cool tune. A radio favorite for many, many years, FM radio here in this country, in the U.S. I've always really dug it a lot. That's number 5. Coming in at number 4, I was almost not going to include this on this list at all because while it is a song, it's also an entire album. Okay? So I was going to discount this, and I was going to discount Passion Play as well for the same reason. But for whatever reason, I just could not give you guys a top 10 without including Thick as a Brick. Because it's just so incredible. Whether you look at it as just an album made up of like, segments, or, in actuality what it is 2 sides of vinyl. One long 45-minute song split up into 2. It's one long tune, basically. I had to include it on here, and I thought about putting it a little higher, but I didn't because of that factor. I said, you know what, it's got to be on this list. At any given time, it could be my favorite Jethro Tull composition ever. But I think for the purposes of what we're doing here, I think I'm going to knock it a little lower just because, again, if you ask me this tomorrow, I might give you a different answer. But Thick as a Brick, amazing epic. Again, we've talked a lot about epics of these last couple of shows. We've talked about Supper's Ready. We've talked about Awaken and Close to the Edge and 2112, yada, yada, yada. Thick as a Brick is right up there. A fantastic long-form composition that basically announced Jethro Tull to the progressive rock world, right? So that's going to come in at number 4. Coming in at number 3, back to my beloved Benefit album, To Cry You a Song. I think one of the most underrated Jethro Tull songs ever. Just a great hard rock / prog gem with some challenging arrangements, some great riffs. Always love To Cry You a Song. And I love Ian's vocal on it as well. It's kind of a sinister tune. Speaking of sinister, coming up at number 2 is the fantastic, folky, proggy, heavy rock gem from Aqualung, My God. My God, is that a great song. You forget how good My God is because it's nestled amongst an album that has so many great tracks. I literally could have put half the Aqualung album on this list, and I had all of them in my regular list, basically. And I had to say, Jesus, I can't put every Aqualung song on here. I got to find the ones I love the most. And My God is probably the best song on that album. It's just so perfectly constructed. It's got this menacing, build up of like impending doom, the folky aspects of it. Ian's kind of playful, quirky vocal, and those sledgehammer riffs, those doomy riffs. It's just something that Tull was just so good at, combining like the folk and the hard rock and a little bit of blues and everything else under the sun. So another great song, by the way. Look Into the Sun. So that's number 2, My God. Number 1, this really was not hard for me. My number 1 pick was always going to be my number 1 pick. It's from one of my top 2 favorite Jethro Tull albums of all time. It's the title track to Minstrel in the Gallery. Again, another rollicking, rollicking, galloping hard rock tune. It's majestic. It's, fist pumping. It's still quite proggy, but it's this just regal, grandiose rock tune from Tull that I always love that aspect of their music. And for me, I really love the entire Minstrel in the Gallery album. And again, I had a couple tunes from that album on my larger list, but I had to just, I can't include everything right in the top 10. So I think that's a pretty good selection from some of the albums that probably are my favorites, obviously. But there's a lot of other great ones. Like I said, this was hard. This took me a couple hours to whittle this down to this. So as always, I want to do some honorable mentions. My honorable mentions list is quite lengthy here, so I'm just going to kind of rip through them. Here we go. With You There to Help Me, Look Into the Sun, Living in the Past, For 1,000 Mothers. With You There to Help Me, Nothing to Say, Wind Up, Cross-Eyed Mary, Hymn 43, A Passion Play. Why not A Passion Play? Two Fingers, Backdoor Angels, Cold Wind to Valhalla, Baker Street Muse, another amazing epic from Tull. No Lullaby, Pibroch, Cap in Hand, Hunting Girl, Jack in the Green, The Whistler, Dark Ages, my favorite track from the Stormwatch album, a very underrated album. Something's on the Move, another great heavy rocker from that album. Dun Rungeel, another great tune from Stormwatch. Flying Dutchman, also from Stormwatch. Can you tell I like Stormwatch? Black Sunday, my favorite tune from the A album. Seal Driver, Pussy Willow, and Beastie from the Broadsword and the Beast album. Farm on the Freeway, Budapest. Two later gems from the Crest of a Knave album that I like quite a bit. Roots to Branches. I like the Roots to Branches album. That's a great song. And why not Rock Island? I dig Rock Island. Album may not be great, but I like the Rock Island tune. So that's my honorable mention. So let's run down my top 10 again, starting at number 1. Minstrel in the Gallery, My God, To Cry You a Song, Thick as a Brick, number 4. Teacher, number 5. Locomotive Breath, number 6. Songs from the Wood, number 7. Heavy Horses, number 8. Nothing is Easy, number 9. And number 10, Aqualung. So there you have it. A top 10 list of spectacular gems from Jethro Tull. Again, as in all these shows, I always kind of end it with saying that if you were to ask me this same question 3 months from now, 2 weeks from now, I might give you a slightly different list because I really love a lot of those songs that are in the honorable mentions list, but I think that's a pretty close to definitive selection from me. And I'm going to stick by it for today anyway. So in the meantime, while you're enjoying this little top 10 list of Jethro Tull and hopefully going into your Jethro Tull album collection and listening to some of those great old albums, visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on the mighty YouTube as often as possible. You guys seem to be loving this top 10 show, so I'm going to do quite a few of these in the weeks to come. I've got a whole list of bands that I'm going to cover, and it keeps growing every day. So we're going to bring them to you. We got more deep cuts on classic albums coming up. Got some rants cooking. There's going to another slight delay on the Judas Priest show, guys. The history of Judas Priest. We're hoping to shoot that next week. It's really hard to schedule these things when you're dealing with another person in their schedule too. So we're going to make it happen. It's just a tough time of the year with the holidays coming up, and we all have our day jobs and things like that. So it's been a little difficult. We're going to do that. Also got a history of Grand Funk Railroad, history of Dio and MSG, and there's so many things that I'm working on. So stay tuned for all that. Thanks for all your views. Make sure you tell your friends to subscribe. If you're watching this and you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Subscriptions help. Spread that word. So we'll see you real soon, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.